Hi friends, thank you for joining me for this next lesson in our series, Knowing Jesus in a New Way. And Jesus's followers saw Jesus die on the cross. And then they learned that he had resurrected from the dead. Somehow he had overcome sin and death. And he was the same, but he had been made new. It was a lot to try and understand. And now we can look at the stories that were written down in the Bible and start to learn, just like Jesus's followers learned, what all of this meant, what this would mean for us and for all the people in the future. So let's go ahead and review our old stories, and then we'll move on to our new story for this week. Do you remember the very first Easter, when the women went to the tomb and they had spices and other things to care for Jesus's body? They wanted to give him a proper burial. But on that first Sunday, that first Easter, the stone had been rolled away, and when the women peeked inside the tomb, Jesus's body was gone. It was not there. Although the women went and told the other disciples, the men didn't really believe them. It seemed unbelievable. 2 of the disciples were walking away from Jerusalem on the road to Emmaus. And they started walking with a stranger who seemed to know nothing about all that had happened. But as they talked, they realized that he was opening the scriptures to them. He was teaching their hearts what had really happened. They wanted to talk more with the stranger, so they decided to have dinner together after a long day. And when the stranger took the bread, thanked God for it, and broke it, he gave it to them. And all of a sudden, the disciples knew it was he. It really was Jesus. Jesus did appear to the disciples on many occasions. But after he appeared to the disciples in a closed room, when Thomas wasn't there, the disciple Thomas said to his friends, "I can't believe it. I will not believe it unless I touch the wounds on his hands and I put my hand on his side to feel his wounds there. I will not believe that Jesus has been resurrected." Thomas was full of doubt. But then, wouldn't you guess it, the next time the disciples were in that room, Jesus came. And Jesus wasn't angry. He just came right up to Thomas and he said, "Touch me." Jesus came close to Thomas's doubt. But he did say, "Blessed are those who believe, even though they haven't seen." Jesus had told his followers to move on to the Galilee, to meet him there. But what were they supposed to be doing? And when would Jesus show up? One day, the disciples decided to go ahead and go fishing. This is something they had done with their fathers and grandfathers. They knew this area. This was their home. But they fished all night and they didn't catch anything. So in the morning, someone on the shore, they couldn't make out who it was, but someone on the shore said, "Have you caught anything?" The disciples said, "No." And the man on the shore said, "Throw your nets on the other side." So the disciples did. What did they have to lose? And as they threw their nets across the edge of the boat into the water, they could feel the fish almost like jumping into the nets. They were getting so full, they were worried that their nets would break. How could there be so many fish? And all of a sudden, the disciples said to each other, "It is he. Who else can perform such miracles of abundance, where somehow there's more than we could have asked for or imagined?" And they said to each other, "It's Jesus." And Peter was so excited, he jumped into the water with his clothes on and swam out to see Jesus. Here is the lesson from last week. Jesus was talking to all of his followers in Galilee. Maybe he was pointing to all of these hills. What was he saying? Oh, he said to tell everyone this story. Tell all about Jesus. Tell all about him. How he lived and how he died and how he rose again. How he conquered death and sin. And he said, go ahead. Go to every nation. Don't leave anybody out. And baptize them so they can be part of this story too. Our story for this week, we remember how the disciples returned to Jerusalem. Jesus had come to them many times and had told them many things. They gathered again in a special room together, and again, Jesus appeared to them there. Now they were starting to get more used to Jesus as the resurrected Jesus, as the risen Lord. They began asking him all sorts of questions that felt important to them, but actually they were a little foolish. They said, "Lord, when will you return the kingdom to Israel?" But Jesus cut short such talk. It is not for you to know the times or the seasons. Jesus then led them out of the room and through the streets. They went beyond the walls of Jerusalem, perhaps even near Bethany. Jesus stopped, and they must have gathered around him. he lifted up his hands, and one by one, he blessed them. He then withdrew, and a cloud took him out of sight. The disciples, you can see them here, they stood looking up into the sky. And then there were two men standing there, dressed in white. The disciples felt silly. The men said to them, "Why are you looking into the sky?" And the disciples didn't know what to say. The strangers then answered their own question. This was Jesus. He is gone now, as you have known him. It seemed like a great weight was lifted from their shoulders. The disciples then turned and went back towards Jerusalem. Now they knew they had to wait. Jesus had talked about a Spirit that would come. But what was this Holy Spirit that he said would be coming to them? How would they know? How would they know that was what Jesus meant? So they waited, and they waited. While the disciples waited, they found someone to replace Judas. God helped them choose Matthias. Now they were the 12 once more. But they still had to keep waiting. How long would it take for the Holy Spirit to come? Now, I wonder what you liked best about this story. I wonder what it feels like to you to wait. I wonder if we know how to wait when we're not sure what we're waiting for. I'd love to hear what you think about this story next time we talk together. Thanks for being with me today.